Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another house rules video. And this one we're going to be dealing with inventory. Because who knew that equipment was going to require 3 full videos to cover? So, in the first video about equipment, we dealt with what does equipment actually do? Is it just a storytelling technique? So if you're trying to fix a car, then you'll need some tools. Otherwise, the games master will put something into the story to make it more difficult, or you won't even be able to achieve the task. Or do they offer some kind of bonus? So you use your skill to fix something, but if you've got the right tools, you get a bonus to that skill. In the second part, we dealt with how you acquire the equipment. So, are you going out in Dungeons & Dragons type setting and spending gold pieces to buy things in a shop? Or is it like the Stargate role-playing game, where you're getting allocated equipment because you're part of a military unit? But in this one, we're going to deal with inventory, so how your characters actually carry it. Now, in most role-playing games, this is handled in a fairly similar manner, that you have a certain capacity, often set by an attribute, so usually whether you're quite strong, you'll be able to carry more, and each item will have a piece of weight. Now, it doesn't matter how bulky the items are, everything is calculated down to the weight, which I find a kind of unrealistic fashion, but you've got to work it some way. Now, I'm going to cover a bunch of games which do it that way. But the reason this video has taken so long to come out is I remember back in the 80s there being a particular game which handled inventory management in a different way. And I cannot locate that game. I cannot remember what it is. I seem to remember that it's a modern day or futuristic game because it had firearms in it. But what it was, I don't remember. But I reached out to the Discord and they very helpfully pointed me towards a game which works in a similar fashion, which I'll come to towards the end. But anyway, let's have a look at some games and how they handle inventory. So, first up, the 1981 version of Dungeons & Dragons, the Magenta box, from TSR. Now, putting the box to the side and looking through the rulebook, we can see on B20, page B20, we've got character movement and encumbrance. Now, rather strangely in this version, weight is considered in coins. So, characters moving more than 1,600 coins of weight are overloaded and unable to move. We've got other lesser amounts, so 400 coins less or unarmoured. They can move 120, 401 to 600, or leather, 90, 601 to 800, or metal armour, 60, 801 to 1600, all metal armour and carrying treasure, 30. Then their distances when running, etc. And we've got various items, so chainmail armour weighs 400, battle axe weighs 50, and everything's measured in coins. And nothing is determined by your stats. You've got these hard limits that what every character can carry, and we've got measurements for what mules can carry as well. And on to a later version of Dungeons & Dragons, where they'd changed the rules slightly. Now this is 3rd edition, which came out from Wizards of the Coast in the year 2000. Now first, if we go over to page 98, I should have put a finger in, we can see the equipment tables. And instead of being weighed in coins, things are weighed in pounds now. So we're on to imperial measurements, things familiar to Americans more than Europeans. And what does that mean? Well, on 142, we've got carrying capacities. And we can see that, depending on your strength, you can carry light loads, medium loads, or heavy loads. And what do these mean? Well, if you're carrying a light load, you can act as normal. If you're carrying a medium load, which is basically about sort of double your light load, you can have a maximum dex bonus of +3, and your checks are at a -3, plus your movement is reduced. 30 feet people move at 20 feet, 20 feet people move at 15 feet, and you're limited to a run of ×4. And if you're carrying a heavy load, which again is the sort of same on top, so 3 times your light load, your max dex penalty, or bonus, is +1. Your check penalty is -6. Your moves are the same, but now your run is ×3. And there's also rules in here that you can drag or push things about 5 times your maximum load. So you can move things around. And jumping genres, looking at Shadowrun 2nd edition from 1992 from Fazer. If we go right towards the back of the book, we've got the equipment section, and we can see that weights here are listed in units here. These are actually kilograms, so a katana weighs 1 kilogram, a knife weighs half a kilogram. But what does that actually mean? Well, back on page 185, we've got hauling the load, and we see that it's based on your strength. A character can carry up to strength times 5 in kilograms without appreciable effect. Twice that load, strength times 10, will leave the character in a state equivalent to lightly wounded. Character carrying 3 times is moderately fatigued, cannot run, movement cut in half. 4 times makes the character seriously fatigued, cannot run, movement cut to 1/4. Any heavier load makes the character pass out from exertion. So basically this is stun damage they take for carrying so much. They're getting exhausted, they're getting tired. If they carry too much, they pass out completely, but otherwise they're just taking a penalty for carrying too much. So all their skills are reduced, all their attributes are reduced effectively while they're carrying that load. And having a look at 1981's Bushido, which I've been kind of covering a lot lately. Now, in the book 1, if we skip to page 53, we can see various goods and services and various items, and they have a weight. Well, these are back to using imperial measurements. These are in pounds, because way back, well, way early in the book, we've got encumbrance capacity. A character carrying up to 2 times his strength in pounds is unencumbered. His load has no effects on his actions. Partially encumbered, 4 times, he suffers a reduction of 25% in his current deftness and speed attributes, also lowering abilities based on those scores. Suffers a -1 to all BCS capability and physical attribute saving throw rolls. Fully encumbered, carrying up to 6 times his strength in pounds, suffers a 50% to his current deftness and speed. He will lower their related abilities, suffers a -2 to all dice rolls, BCS, capability, physical attributes, saving throws. Note that certain other activities will be specified in the rules as being impossible or at least much more difficult under certain encumbrance conditions. So, you can carry multiples based on your strength, but you get penalties for carrying over the sort of basic double your strength value in pounds. And going back to fantasy, we've got 1986's Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the first edition. Now, the equipment, on page 295, we can see they have encumbrance values. Now, what does this mean? Well, way back on page 75, we've got armor encumbrance. Characters can carry an amount equal to their strength times 100. So a character with strength of 4 can carry 400 encumbrance points of equipment before they start to suffer. For each 50 points or part thereof which characters have over and above their maximum encumbrance, they lose 1 from their movement allowance. However, dwarves are a bit different because they can carry lots. So dwarves can carry strength times 200 points of encumbrance before they start to suffer the restrictions, and horses may carry strength times 300. So you start to slow down, although you're not less effective in combat. And getting a chance to dig obscurities out of my collection is an absolute joy, so here is Serenity, the role-playing game from 2005, from Margaret Weiss Productions. Now, if we go to page 76, we can see that items do have a weight, but nowhere in the rules does it tell you of any penalties you got or any limitations on what you can carry. Now, protective gear does have certain alertness and agility penalties, so armor can slow you down. But other stuff that you're carrying, there's no penalties at all. We see the bows and guns have weights here, but they have no penalties beyond that. And looking at Vampire the Masquerade from 1992. Rather lovely game. Now, this is where we start to see a differentiation between types of games. Because we've noted that in many of the fantasy games, where you are trekking around the place and your character is carrying their life on their back. They've got all their equipment, their food, the treasure from previous adventures, plus the stuff they've just looted from the dungeon they're going to now. So it's important how much they can carry. It's a limitation on them to stop them just carrying everything around and then looting absolutely everything. They have to be a bit picky. Whereas in a modern day game, it's less important what they can carry and more important what it looks like, especially in a storytelling game like Vampire. So, while your vampire might have an assault rifle, he's not going to be carrying it everywhere with him. He's not going to be turning up at a nightclub to interrogate somebody holding an assault rifle or with one strapped on his back. But he might have one in his lair, where he can go back and get it before they go and raid somebody's domain, before they get into a big fight. So what it weighs doesn't matter. It's what it appears like and what you describe it as. So, turning to page 227, we can see there's a firearms table here. And concealability is a thing, but there is no such thing as weight. And there are no rules for encumbrance at all in Vampire. And although it's not a modern game, Call of Cthulhu. Now this is the Games Workshop printing from 1986 of the 3rd edition. Now again, this is a game where the players aren't going to be carrying their lives on their back. They're investigators, they'll be keeping some stuff in their offices and homes, and they can carry stuff around in their car if they want. You know, if they've got guns and things that they wouldn't be comfortable walking into an office with, they can have them locked up in the boot of their car. The trunk, or whatever you want to call it. And looking at equipment here, I found some on page 114, newer weapons for Call of Cthulhu. We've got damage, base chance, the hit points, range, cost, but no weight or anything, and there are no encumbrance rules once again. And another much-loved obscurity from my collection, Millennium Zen from 1991, which was released by Chameleon Eclectic. Now this is another game set in the modern day, so the weight of equipment doesn't really matter. But the game deals with it a fairly odd way. If we go on to the weapons tables here, towards the back of the book, page 136, we can see that items have a mass. But how much your character can carry is dealt with nowhere in the rules. Armour and things does have a limitation if you're wearing heavy armour, but the mass of weapons and things doesn't matter. But it does add to the mass of your character. So in certain situations where your character might trigger something due to their weight, you're adding their personal mass to the mass of all their equipment. But it's not a limitation, it doesn't limit their stats or anything, it's just used for calculating out things within the game itself. And finally, since I'm loving obscurities, Twilight 2013. Now, I was going to do Twilight 2000, but I very rarely get a chance to dig this out, so thought I would use it this time. Now, as usual, going to page 216, we've got various equipment here, dry suits, earmuffs, and they've all got weights. But what does that mean? Well, way back on page 94-95, we can see carrying capacities. So you've got your combat load. Character's combat load is the threshold weight above which he begins to suffer slight but noticeable degradation of physical performance. This is equal to 10 kilograms plus the character's muscle. So as long as they've got less than that, they can do everything as normal. Then march load is the threshold above which ability to maneuver in a crisis situation is significantly degraded. The weight with which he can march but not fight well. This is equal to 11 kilograms plus the character's muscle and fitness. So once they reach this level, they're able to march around and carry all this stuff from A to B. But if they get in a fight, they're going to be significantly degraded. And this is mainly through their initiative. Your initiative in Twilight 2013 is heavily based on the load you're carrying. So you will go less often and further back in initiative phases if you're carrying a heavy load. And finally, we've got the emergency load. Character carrying his emergency load is limited to short-term physical exertion. This equal to 21 plus the character's muscle times 2, fitness and resolve. And at that phase, their initiative is heavily penalised. So I mentioned at the start of the video that I've been trying to locate a particular role-playing game which handled inventory in a totally different fashion. And I was unable to remember what it was. I've got some vague memories of it being modern day or futuristic because it handled pistols, but it handled inventory in a completely different fashion to all of the ways we've seen before. And asking on the Discord, nobody could remember exactly what it was, but they pointed me towards this, Torchbearer, which isn't the game I remembered, but it works in a very similar fashion. It's almost a video gamey fashion, so I've downloaded the character sheet here, because that's the important part of it. So we've got the standard abilities, skills and all that on here, but then we've got inventory. And you can see the inventory is broken down. Head, neck, hands, feet, torso, belt, pocket, and your satchel backpack. You've got small sacks, large sacks, and a cache, stuff that's stored at your camp or at your home, or your mom's house, it says. Now, this, to me, lays out equipment in a much more sensible fashion, especially for a modern day game. Because it's laying out what you're wearing, where. as equipment. So, have you got a shoulder holster with a pistol in it, or are you wearing them on your hips? Because that might affect fast draw. But it also deals with where you're keeping your ammunition. What have you got in your pockets? And that helps out in a modern day game far more than the bulky inventory, because you're not going to be lugging a big backpack around. As we've seen in other modern day games, they tend to ignore inventory management as much, because they know you can go and pick stuff up. But that leaves it totally vague, and basically you can carry everything. But this makes a lot more sense, that you can have a gun on your hip, you can have spare ammunition on the other, you can have a mid-pack in the small of your back, you can have a concealed knife under your armpit, etc, etc. If you're carrying a large gun, it's going to be across your chest, and you can't carry a backpack or something on there. If you're not carrying a large weapon, you can carry backpacks on the front and back. You can laden yourself down. But this makes a lot more sense, as I said, to me for a modern day game. And this was exactly what I was looking for. As I said, I have no memory of the game itself. If you're watching this video and it rings any bells with you, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to remember which game I'm half remembering. But anyway, let's go over to the desktop and have a look at the rules we've been writing together and how I've decided to add this to the game. So here we are with the shared Google document of the rules we've been putting together. These many months we've been working on this. And if I've remembered properly, I'll link to that in the description down below, so you can click on it and read through it for yourself. Now, this has been put together with all the sections we've covered in previous videos. So we've got the original text from 1995 that I wrote with the idea. We've got the resolution system, attributes, skills, critical hits, the races and humanity system, the life path generation system we come up with. We've got advancement, we've got magic, we've got the stress system that we came up to deal with sanity, wealth, bribery, and here we are onto equipment. So I've added a new size thing. So basically I'm going with the inventory system from that last one we looked at, where in a modern day system you are putting items around your body. You can go back to base and swap them out at various times. You can go back to your car and swap out a gun. You can pick up more ammunition or whatever. But you're limited as to what you can carry and still be capable of combat. So what we've got here is the space on the belt for 3S things. And the sizes listed here, so they're small. Items which can be easily carried, such as pistols. So on your belt you can have a couple of pistols, one either side. You can have something at the small of your back, whether that's a medkit or a concealed pistol. And you're carrying other things on your hips, a radio perhaps. In your pockets, you've got 4 spaces for diminutive items. These are tiny little things. So a mobile phone, a wallet, just tiny little things, which are basically half the size of a small item. Across your chest, you've got 2 smalls, so you could carry a gun or a clip of ammunition or something like that, but a large item as well, like a rifle. Or you could have a pack hung across your chest, as well as a pack on your back, so you can be carrying lots of stuff. And then in your armpits, you've got another 2 smalls, so you can be carrying a knife or a pistol or ammunition. You've got space there for stuff. And each item comes with a size. So, like a big heavy respirator is going to be large. Now, you can be carrying that around your chest, or you can be carrying it in a backpack, or you can be wearing it. And some of the items are W for wearable. So, a ballistic vest. Now, these are counted as large when they're not being worn. But, basically, when you're wearing them, they don't count as anything. So, actually, let's go back and change the respirator to a W, because it doesn't contain anything when you're wearing it. But if you're carrying it around your chest, it's a big bulky item and stops you carrying something else. We've got combat knives, which are small, automatic pistols, and I've just changed a few things out to add a couple more. So we've got the mobile phone. A modern internet-capable mobile phone will work in most civilized areas. Mobile phone +2 to research when used. It's diminutive. You can carry it in your pocket, and we've got the cost there. It is quite expensive. And we've got a backpack. So when it's worn, it reduces your skills by 1. So you are much more clumsy. You can't do things because you're carrying a big backpack. But it allows you to carry more items. So there's a disadvantage of carrying more stuff. And you can carry multiple backpacks if you want. If you're wanting to carry an absolute pile of stuff, you could wear one in your back, one on your chest. You could be carrying one in each hand. So you'll be getting a -4 to your skills because you're really laden down. But if you want to carry lots and lots of stuff, you can do. And this penalty is only while it's worn. So if you're carrying a backpack and you know you're going into combat, you can take it off and you can put it to one side. So it doesn't stop you carrying a lot of stuff. You just have to prepare to use it in combat because you'll be that much more bulky. Anyway, a bag which can be worn on the back to contain a number of smaller items, can contain 4 large items, or 2 small items for each large item, or 4 diminutive items for each small item. So you can fill it up with small things. If you want to be carrying dozens of mobile phones for some reason, you can pack them in a backpack. But you could carry 4 shotguns in there, or 3 shotguns and a bunch of ammunition. And that's the way it works. It's not a perfect system, but I do like the way that it limits you. If you want to carry lots of stuff, there's a disadvantage to it. But as usual, if you've got any thoughts about how this works, or you've got any improvements, then please let me know in the comments down below. I have gone in and changed these things and modified the system based on feedback from the audience, because all of your brains definitely outweigh mine. So there's far more good ideas out there than I can come up with just by myself. And that's really appreciated. That's the joy of it, coming up with a system together where I can bounce ideas off you and you can come back with far better ideas. But anyway, as usual, I think I've been whittering on for quite long enough. So thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.